Remember the 2011 playoffs? A young Derrick Rose, league MVP, walking into a matchup everyone said was a nightmare for him. On the other side stood Gregg Popovich, the coach known for breaking stars down piece by piece, slowing them, frustrating them, turning talent into hesitation. Everyone expected a chess match. Everyone expected Popovich to win it. But what if I told you that night didn't turn into a chess game at all? What if I told you Derrick Rose didn't just score on that defense, he made it disappear? This isn't just a game recap. This is the night one of the smartest defensive systems in NBA history had no answers. And by the end of it, even Popovich looked like he was reacting instead of controlling. Before we go deeper, here's a real question. And don't dodge it. If a defense built to stop superstars can't slow one player at all, is that defense still great? Or did it meet something it was never designed to face? That question sits at the center of this story. By 2011, Derrick Rose wasn't a secret anymore. He wasn't the exciting young guard people were curious about. He was the MVP of the league, the engine of Chicago, and the reason the Bulls were relevant again. But there was still doubt. Not about his talent, about his style. People believed Rose relied too much on speed, too much explosion, too much chaos. And chaos, everyone said, doesn't work against the Spurs. San Antonio didn't panic. They didn't gamble. They didn't chase highlight blocks. They closed space early. They forced decisions. They waited for stars to make mistakes. Popovich's defense wasn't about stopping your first move. It was about killing your second and third. That's why this matchup was so fascinating. On one side, structure, discipline, and control. On the other, a player who attacked before structure could even settle. From the opening possessions, you could feel the tension. Derrick Rose didn't come out trying to prove anything. He didn't test the defense slowly. He went straight at it. Not recklessly, not out of control. Direct. The Spurs tried to angle him away from the paint. Rose changed speed. They brought help early. He split it. They stayed home on shooters. He finished through contact. This wasn't Rose beating one defender. This was Rose forcing 5 defenders to make decisions at once and beating the delay. That's the part defenses hate, because systems need time. Time to rotate, time to communicate, time to recover. Rose didn't allow any of it. Every drive felt like it came half a second earlier than expected, and that half second mattered. You could see it on the floor. Spurs defenders were in the right place, just a moment too late. Hands were up, bodies were set, but Rose was already past them. It wasn't flashy domination, it was uncomfortable domination. The kind that makes a great defense feel exposed. As the game went on, something subtle changed. San Antonio stopped dictating where Rose went. They started guessing. That's dangerous, because once a defense starts guessing, the offense owns the rhythm. Rose began to control tempo without slowing down. He chose when to attack, when to pull back, when to explode. And every time he did, the Spurs had to react instead of plan. Popovich is famous for mid-game adjustments, but this wasn't about the wrong adjustment. It was about timing. No scheme can guard a player who arrives before the help is ready, every time. And Rose kept arriving early. By the end of this stretch, it was clear. This wasn't about points. This was about control. A system designed to erase individual brilliance was being bent by one player's ability to collapse it on contact. And the most unsettling part? Rose wasn't forcing the issue. He wasn't angry, he wasn't rushed. He looked calm, almost patient, like he understood something the defense didn't. And that's when this stopped being a normal playoff game. Because when a player understands the system he's facing better than the system understands him, that's when legends are born. And we haven't even reached the turning point yet.
By the second quarter, it stopped feeling like a normal Spurs game. San Antonio usually wins possessions before the shot even goes up. They force you into bad angles. They make you hesitate. They make you second-guess the drive. That night, none of that was happening. Derrick Rose wasn't reacting to the defense, he was attacking it on arrival. Every time the Spurs tried to funnel him toward help, Rose split it. When they switched, he went before the switch could settle. When they dropped bigs into the paint, he pulled them just far enough out, then blew past them. This wasn't speed for highlight plays. This was speed used with purpose. Rose kept hitting the same spot, right between help defenders. The exact place Popovich's system depends on being closed. And that's when the defense started to look empty. Guys were rotating, hands were in the right places, but no one was actually stopping the ball. It felt like Rose was driving through shapes instead of people. By halftime, the scoreboard told one story, but the floor told another. San Antonio wasn't getting beat by breakdowns, they were getting beaten clean. Popovich started changing looks. First, they tried to pick Rose up earlier. Rose crossed half court, accelerated once, and the advantage was already gone. Then they sent help from unexpected places. Rose didn't panic. He absorbed contact, finished through it, or kicked the ball out just long enough to reset, then attacked again. That's the part people forget about this game. Rose didn't rely on one move. He didn't hunt mismatches. He hunted timing. Every defender who stepped up was late by design. By the third quarter, the crowd could feel it. Every possession where Rose touched the ball felt dangerous, not because he might score, but because the defense didn't know how he would score. Pull-up, Euro step, through the chest of a big, high glass over help, and the Spurs, they stopped dictating terms. That's when you knew something was wrong, for them. Popovich's teams usually look organized even when they're losing. This time, they looked like they were surviving each possession. Rose hit 30, then 35, and it still didn't slow him. The most telling moment wasn't a basket, it was the pauses. Between possessions, Spurs defenders were talking more than usual, pointing, resetting, trying to solve something in real time that their game plan didn't prepare them for. Because you can scheme against patterns, you can't scheme against someone who breaks patterns every trip. When Rose crossed 40, the game had shifted completely. This wasn't MVP hype anymore, this was proof. Proof that the league's best defensive coach couldn't take away what made Rose dangerous. Proof that even perfect positioning doesn't matter if the attacker arrives before the defense is ready. 42 points. Against that team, against that coach, in that season. And somehow, it still felt quiet. No showboating, no staring down defenders, just relentless pressure. Like the defense was there, but couldn't be touched. A ghost. And the most important part? Rose didn't beat the Spurs by abandoning control. He beat them by taking it. By the fourth quarter, this wasn't about points anymore. It was about control. San Antonio games usually slow down late. Possessions get tighter, shots get harder, opponents rush, the Spurs wait. That night, Derrick Rose didn't rush a single moment. Every time the Bulls needed stability, the ball found him, and instead of forcing something, he dictated what happened next. Popovich went deeper into his bag. They mixed coverages within the same possession. They baited Rose into space, hoping he'd settle. They crowded driving lanes, daring him to take jumpers. Rose accepted every invitation. When they backed off, he pulled up, calmly. When they stepped up, he attacked the rim violently. When they collapsed, he held the ball just long enough to freeze help, then finished anyway. This was the evolution people didn't expect yet. Because up to that point, the league still talked about Rose like a highlight machine. Explosive, athletic, dangerous in transition. But this game wasn't chaos, it was precision at high speed, and that's what made it terrifying. The Spurs' defense wasn't failing because of effort, it was failing because Rose was making the correct decision before the defense finished reacting. That's the gap no system can close. You could see it on the Spurs bench. Not frustration, not panic, calculation. Popovich was watching, arms crossed, scanning the floor, and there simply wasn't a lever left to pull. You trap him, he splits it. You switch, he beats the switch. You stay home, he scores. This wasn't a mismatch. This was inevitability. Late in the game, when the Spurs usually break teams mentally, it was Rose doing the breaking. He walked the ball up, surveyed the floor, and went exactly where he wanted, not where the defense pushed him. And every bucket felt heavier than the last. Not loud, not flashy, deflating. The kind of scoring that tells a defense you did everything right and it still didn't matter. That's when the idea started forming, even if people didn't say it out loud yet. This wasn't just an MVP season driven by numbers. This was a guard who could bend elite defenses until they stopped functioning the way they were built to. Against the Spurs, that realization hits harder, because if this defense can't take something away from you, what can? When Rose checked out late, the damage was already done. 42 points didn't just show up on the stat sheet. They stayed in the memory of anyone who understood how hard those points were to get. This wasn't dominance through volume, it was dominance through answers. And on that night, Derrick Rose had one for everything Gregg Popovich threw at him.
By the time the final minutes drained off the clock, the building didn't feel stunned. It felt quiet. Not because the crowd didn't care, but because everyone understood what they had just witnessed, and it didn't fit neatly into a highlight reel or a headline. This wasn't a lucky night. This wasn't a hot shooting stretch. This wasn't a defense having an off game. This was a superstar walking into one of the smartest, most disciplined systems in basketball and making it irrelevant for a night. And that's why this game matters more than most people remember. When players drop big numbers against average teams, it gets celebrated. When they do it against elite defenses, it gets noticed. But when someone dismantles a Popovich defense without chaos, without hero ball, without panic, that's something different. That's a warning, because systems are built to remove options. Stars survive by forcing them. Derrick Rose didn't force anything that night. He removed the Spurs' ability to choose. Every adjustment Popovich made led to a different kind of damage. Every rotation created a new opening. Every attempt to slow the game down only gave Rose more space to think. That's what separated this performance from the rest of his MVP season. It wasn't just about athleticism anymore. It was about command. For a brief stretch in 2011, Derrick Rose wasn't chasing greatness. He was setting the terms. And games like this are proof. They don't get replayed as often because there wasn't a single defining shot, no buzzer beater, no iconic pose, just sustained pressure, possession after possession, until a great defense stopped being great. This is the version of Rose people argue about now, the one that didn't need to be perfect, the one that didn't need to dominate physically every play, the one that could think the game as fast as he played it. And when people talk about what could have been, this night is part of that conversation, even if it's rarely named. Because this wasn't a glimpse, it was a confirmation. That Derrick Rose, at his peak, wasn't just a problem for defenders, he was a problem for systems. And on that night, the Spurs didn't lose to the Bulls. They ran out of answers.